me, President Buhari recently in a conference on democracy by Biden promised the world that is going to ensure free, fair, and credible election in 2023. And the beginning of that is this bill. That is, if his promise is serious and is expected to be fulfilled, this is the beginning of it. And for me, we have to do everything possible to ensure that we have free and credible election. Because if you look at elections in this country, you can't call it election. We've made a choice to be a democratic country. And the foundation of that is free, fair, and credible election. And the president has promised that severally. Let's, for me, wait and see when he goes back to the National Assembly with his requested amendments, which can be done quickly because they know how to do these things overnight. They can do it and take it back to him. And let's see whether he assents to it. And let's see the support he's going to give and his actions through what he promised the world.
All right, let's talk about the main bone of contention that everyone, have been upset about, which is the issue of direct primaries. I know that, you have last election time you ran for the office of the vice president. What do you make of his declaration that the direct primaries goes against our freedom of choices?
Well, personally, I don't think so. There's nothing wrong in direct primaries. And even when people say it's going to be very expensive, these things are not going to be expensive. They're done everywhere in the world. In today's electronic voting and everything, people can actually, party members are supposed to be registered electronically. For example, in PDP, we are doing e-voting, e-registration. What is e-registration if we cannot do e-voting? So it can be done. You don't need to go anywhere. We can choose. We know all the members in this local government. They are there registered in our system, and they can vote from even sitting in their house. So all these about making kumbas, not in today's world. Not in today's world. Primaries can be done, conducted by people voting from their houses.
What about the legal implications with the direct primaries? I mean, in our constitution, it says that we are allowed, electoral parties are allowed to choose whoever they want as their candidate and not, in any form that they want to. So what do you make of that with the legal implications?
Well, it's not legal implication. We're about to amend or change the constitution. Yes, parties are allowed to choose whoever they like. Is it democratically or just by mere gang up and everything? We need to do, if we want to practice democracy, it's been practiced everywhere in the world. And when we adopt all this model, let's show where it's working or where it's being used so that we know who we are. We cannot pick and choose. It's not a buffet thing. If we want to say we're democratic, let's do what other people are doing to stay in that.
Right. Does this feel like deja vu for you again?
Well, that what it feels like is that he promised the world something. And it's important that it's delivered. You see, all of us who are politicians, who are elected one way or the other, make promises to people. What I keep campaigning and saying every day, if you make a promise, I'm going to do this. For government to build some trust, do it. Even when it doesn't favor you. Just do it, because that's the promise.
So it doesn't feel like 2018 all over? Because this was how 2018 started.
As I'm saying, he made a promise now to the world.
Yeah.
And the foundation of that promise is this. So let's wait and see when the correction comes and we'll take it from there.
You think he will sign it?
Well, I believe so, because having made a promise and he's giving his excuses, let's look at the excuses and see how we can salvage the situation.
If he doesn't,
no, we have passed the point about the president signing. you know.
Yeah, we're talking about representing it.
Yeah, but the issue is not about whether he will still sign or not. He has not signed. And he has communicated to the National Assembly. He has stated his reasons. Now, Section 59 of the Constitution gives the National Assembly the powers to override the National Assembly. As you know, a major politician in Nigeria, what advice would you give to this National Assembly?
My advice is, let's look at what he said is his excuse for not signing. Think about it. Take it back to him again. You know, before we get to issue of veto, let's try to, you know, reason with his excuses.
No, but the National Assembly will have to sit, take a decision. You are saying that the National Assembly should go back to him again and plead with him.
No,
that would be executive dictatorship.
No, well, in this situation, we have to manage everybody's concern. He's made a promise. Let's ensure that he fulfills his promise.
Okay, but I mean, as someone who is actively involved in this process, what's your position on this conflict, this controversy over direct and indirect democracy?
For me, it doesn't make any difference to have, like I said it's cumbersome, it's costly, but I said in today's electronic, in today's, with the ICT, with everything, those things are not expensive any longer. It's not in small countries with effortless ease. All this voting controversy and everything, I've been part of election monitoring in different countries. It's as they're busy. If you go to Ghana here on election day, you won't even know they're conducting an election.
No, this is not about elections, sir.
No, even the primary. Even
internal democracy
even the internal
the
democracy within the parties are done in the same way as the major elections. You wouldn't even know. I've been invited to, of course, I don't want to use America as an example because they are far away, but I've actually been invited as a guest to the Democratic Convention. These things are done with effortless ease. You know, with effortless ease and everything. It's not something that we should be going forward and backward and everything if we mean business.
You've described what's going on in the political sphere here in Nigeria as transactional politics, right? Yes. That's what we're running here at this point, even with all of the issues with the Electoral Amendment Bill. Now, how do we begin to sort good leaders if our nation is used to this transactional politics that you have described?
Well, it's a very simple thing. If Reuben says he wants to be governor, let us ask a simple question. Who is Reuben? Reuben is now, say, 50 years. What has Reuben have been doing, say, in the past 20 years since he left school? Where is Reuben? What is Reuben? Who is he? His background and everything. We don't do that. We have a situation where election is coming now. Everybody is saying, I want to be this. Nobody is asking, listen, I say it's transactional because all you hear is that people want to sit down and say, Reuben, if you go in, I will get this. This person go. So they are busy sharing. It's an enterprise. So the shareholders, those who are going to support Reuben, wants to show what is Reuben going to bring back to me. How is Reuben going to do this? I have this position, I have that position. So it's become a business enterprise. But if we ask questions, who is Reuben? Okay, Reuben used to be, say, maybe in Guardian, was in this day, is now in Arise. Look at this. Can we go and ask Arise people, all these things Reuben is claiming, all these things he's saying that he is, how did the people work with him? That is the question. That's why you see people, somebody says, declares for election in America. They bring out all the debt and everything. If Peter Obi says he's a businessman, okay, what business? What has he been doing for over the years and everything? If you say you're a banker, okay, let's go to the bank and see. So there must be a background check too. Look at his character. Look at his commitment. Look at the post he's seeking. Is he qualified for that post? Because hey, I can be a good maybe local government chairman or even a good governor, but not same thing, because the different posts, that's the same thing as being a president. Because there's so many things that is required for different positions. Because you might be putting somebody who has since passed his destination into the next one. And then it becomes a problem.
Okay, so a lot of people argue that this talk about direct primary is a smoke screen to wade us away from the conversation about electronic transmission of results, which is the core of the matter. And this is why they make that argument. They say it's not a big deal for direct primaries, that parties have had direct primaries and they've not complained in the country. I mean, let me come to your state, for instance. Anambra State, the governorship candidate of the APC in the last election emerged from direct primaries where he got over 300,000 votes. But anyway, the court has said this morning that elections didn't hold, the direct primaries elections didn't hold, so APC didn't present another candidate. But that was a case of direct primaries, and we didn't have to break the bank for that. So what do you say to people that are saying we are throwing away with the baby with the bathwater, that politicians have been able to smuggle this direct primary conversation to take us off the real conversation about electronic transmission of results, which is the core of the matter?
For me, yes, I agree with that, that we need to, it is, what you said is the core of the matter, to ensure that we have election that is credible, free and fair, and we need electronic transmission. But it has to be something that, and whenever, I don't want to go back to issue of Anambra election.
Yeah, let's go there.
It's come and gone.
No, it's fresh, because you see, the court just ruled on that just only yesterday,
for me,
and it's still fresh, and the candidate in question said he got over 300,000 votes in direct primaries.
For me, that's come and gone. But all I said is, we can, as a country, do what is right. And everybody knows we can do what is right.
You don't want to talk about Anambra, which is your home state?
It's coming.
Okay, let's leave Anambra out of it.
Okay.
The election has been lost and won, and all of that. Now, I have a script here from the Abia Professionals, Abia League of Professional Initiative. And they are saying that, look, earlier on you said, oh, the lawmakers, in terms of next steps, you just take a look at what the president has said and try to find a political situation. But Abia League of Professionals Initiative, they are saying that, look, these lawmakers should go back to their constituencies. What exactly do the people of Nigeria want?
Agree.
That's what they are saying. The second thing they're saying, that other people are saying, is that do you think that in the event of an override by the National Assembly, that this ninth National Assembly, led by Dr. Ahmad Lawan, can provide enough numbers to be able to override the president of Nigeria, considering the fact that, look, there seems to be a general consensus out there. 70 civil society organizations, other people saying, look, this is the way to go. There is a lot more in that bill beyond direct primaries.
I believe so. A lot. So what they said they should do is what happens in a democratic setting. Go back to your constituencies and see what they want. And come back. If at that point the president says no, override it, because you're now answerable to the people, not to him.
Now, let me ask you, do you actually believe the reasons given by the president, for vetoing this bill? Or do you think there are political undertones, such as the Tinubu factor, that informed his decision to withhold?
Well, I don't know his reasoning. All I said is that he's made a promise to the world, and that promise must be fulfilled. He needs it for his own credibility, for his own integrity, because it's a promise.
Okay, we keep saying he made a promise. But as it is now, the promise is being broken. Because when you look at it, in Nigeria's history, this is the 4th time this president will reject an electoral amendment bill. Did it 3 times. En route to the last election, and now this is the 4th time we're seeing it. And we keep insisting he made a promise. But another side to it is that democracy is for all. So when will other stakeholders' voices be heard? Because in part of his logic, he said he consulted wide. he consulted with a lot of people. But why is it that the will of 36 people is more than the will of over 200 million Nigerians in this consultation? Reminds me of the words of Fela, that one veto vote is equal to 99 or more. Is that not what is happening here?
No, for me, now, like the IBR professional said, they're now going back, legislators are now going back to their constituencies. If they now go back, you will see the overwhelming support or agitation of Nigerians. That will now be real consultation. And when they come back, they say, this is where we start. Let them go and do it genuinely. It is important. Everybody now has to be involved and ensure that we get this salvage.
Okay, but I mean, we are privileged to have you here. I mean, you've been involved in politics.
Yes.
Direct primaries, indirect primaries, these are things that you are very familiar with. Now, can you give us some clarification in terms of some of the points that have been made? The people pushing for direct primaries say that will promote democracy.
Agree.
The people pushing indirect primaries, they're saying, no, the party can decide. But the other side are saying the governors will be too powerful. You've been governor before. How can a governor be too powerful that, the governor has money bag, or the godfather of the governor would, hijack the process? And I guess this was the point that Uju was making when she was saying, there are some background things that we need to know. She mentioned Tinubu's ambition. We can be decent about that and say, is this all about 2023 and some kind of calculations?
Ruben, your guess is as good as my guess. And I can tell you, I don't know, because as governor, I wasn't in a situation where maybe the governors hijacked any situation. In my election, I've always told people that I've always been lucky to not be part of all this process. In my first election in 2003, Ruben, I was, again, went through the process of being elected without spending monies or throwing around monies that is done today. Can't remember giving any Anambra person money to vote for me in my first election. I stayed in court for 3 years, 5 judges, 4 of them are still alive today. They were hosted by the governor on seat then. I never had the opportunity of giving them or doing anything with them. They gave judgment in my favor. I never even met the person who wrote my judgment at Court of Appeal till 4 years after my first tenure. And when they came back, when I was impeached, I went to court. I never met the people brought back. And when I went for interpretation up to Supreme Court, I never met any of the judges. I don't think those things are possible today. So I take it that my prayers is that let's go back and ensure that things are done properly. So we can have competent people who genuinely want to serve this country.
I think this is a good time for us to take a short break, Mr. Peter Obi. And when we come back, staying with us, Peter Obi. Rufai?
All right, yeah. So there are many questions here, and let's start this way. The last time you were here, you said that people should check for any video that shows that you said you were never going to leave APGA, and people found out that video and they sent it back to us. and we've been able to play video where you say, you were never going to leave APGA and all of that. But since you have left, there's been this talk about, without you, APGA can't win election, back and forth, all of that. Then they have won elections without you and all of that. When you look at your political antecedents now and all of this you've been through, is this the best time to go back? Are you ever going to go back to APGA?
Well, I wish I saw the video. If you read the video very well, that's not what they're claiming. They said, if I leave APGA, I'm going to die, or if I leave, I said, produce that video. And I want you to show me the video and you will see it. It doesn't exist. The video they have is the normal video where you say, in party, maybe I have a meeting, I'm not leaving this party, and everything. I know that and everything. And just like the video, what you talked about, I never said if I leave AMGA, they will never win election. Nobody can say that, you know. For me, it's just like when I heard somebody saying, oh, since if I leave, that if somebody even said that I left AMGA, I've not won election. So it's something that's saying, let me tell you, for me, politics or public life is not about winning or losing election. That is for transactional politicians, which most of the politicians here are. For them, it's a business enterprise. So if you lose the election or you're not in position, your business is not doing well. That is not something for me. For me, politics and public life is about transformational, trying to change a society. Before I went into politics, I lived in the UK and I participated in so many caring events. I've been to Afghanistan, I've been to Rwanda, I've been to Haiti, I've been to Philippines on missions like that. So it is not about winning or losing election. To tell you, I'll give you an example, which I'm sure Ruben is aware. When I was a governor, and there was an earthquake in Haiti, I went to President Jonathan. I said, I want to go to Haiti. And he said, why? I said, I want to go and help them to rebuild. They just have an earthquake. And he said, when? I said, I'm leaving in 2 days' time. I've even withdrawn my son from school. We are going to Haiti. Go and ask the Nigerian ambassador in the Caribbean then. Go and ask the police people. That's how I knew that Nigerian police even worked in Haiti. Go and ask them. I was in Haiti for 1 week, helping them to rebuild. Even went back with the bishop, Catholic Bishop of Nnewi now, Hilary Okeke, Bob Manuel, the actor, went back when I raised about $200,000 for them to help them rebuild. So this is what I used to do. It's even in my family, I can say it. My son was in Costa Rica in 1 year teaching them English in rural place. My daughter today is a teacher in a secondary school in Nigeria, teaching and everything, when I could have even got a job to work in a bank as a bank executive and everything. So for me, since I left office, I visited over 150 schools, hospitals, everything, I've been to schools in Sokoto, Nasarawa, Kogi, every part of Nigeria, trying to, if you ask Governor Tambawal, he will tell you that I was in Sokoto. He gave me the car to take me to a school in the border of Nigeria and the other country, and he asked me, what did you do? I said, I come to visit schools. Let me even come home to what is very quick. On the 10th of this month, I was in Good Shepherd Hospital in Enugu, run by Bishop Chukwuma. The next day, I was on the 11th, I was in Philomena Hospital in Benin, a big hospital run by the Catholic Diocese of Benin. On the 17th, I was in Holy Ghost Hospital and the School of Nursing in Emekuku in Owerri. On the just 2 days ago, I was in the school, Madonna School of Nursing in Umuahia. All these places that I visited, I've not spent less than 1.5 million trying to help them one thing or the other. In school in Nsukka, School of Nursing in Nsukka, I'm helping them to raise $100 million, so Naira, to be able to ensure that that place is up and running. So if you look at my life between the time I was in office and today, you can't see any difference. Public life is, and that's why I'm saying, let's raise the politicians who practice it the way it's practiced all over the world. You don't need to be in office. Being in office might help me to do more, but you don't need to be in office to do what you're supposed to do. I live in the village. I live with the people in the village. I see them every day. I try to help them. So it's not about post or time or this. No. It's for transactional politicians who use it as a business enterprise. So if you're not in post, okay, let me go. So if you actually say, because I'm not in post, that's not what you should do. You can do right things. You can visit schools, guide school children like I go, sit down with them, talk with them, encourage them and everything. You don't need to be a governor or minister this to do that.
Okay, Mr. B, Let's talk about next year, the outlook for next year. Well, I think we should have greeted him. We should have said compliments of the season. Yes.
I wish you said.
Okay, in another few days, we'll be in the new year. And the government of the Federation will seem to have some plans for Nigerians. There have been a lot of talk about removal of petroleum subsidy, removal of electricity subsidy, increase in taxes, government getting more revenue. And some stakeholders have been saying, no, you can't do this to Nigerians. ASU is protesting. They have their own matter. The Nigerian Labour Congress is saying if you increase taxes or you remove subsidy, there will be trouble. Now, what do you think of these proposed measures? And do you think it will be a happy new year for Nigerians, given the various economic indicators? Or we should begin to guard our loins for a year of economic disaster?
Ruben, I don't know who is advising the government, but if what you say happens, the country, the situation will worsen. You will throw more and more people into poverty. The growth will be on the reverse. And I'll take them one after the other to illustrate what I'm trying to say. Taxes. We've always said taxes. The World Bank or development partner position is that for you to have a proper economic growth and grow properly and pull people out of poverty, you're supposed to have tax of 15% and above. So that's the standard. Nigerian tax to GDP, when I mean tax to GDP, Nigerian tax to GDP today is 5%. So it's way below that, and it's understandable. But there's a reason for that. Ruben, Nigeria is a country of 200 million. I know it's about 200, 206 or 210, but let me use 200 million. For a population of 200 million, the standard to measure is that 60% of this population is supposed to be employed. And 60% of 200 million is 120 million. So these are the people that are supposed to be working and paying taxes. But today, with unemployment and underemployment combined of almost 55 to 60%, only 40 million is working. And if you go check your facts now, you will say that even FRS said that only 40 or 41 million Nigerians are paying taxes. That means that is the only population that is working. So instead, what you're now getting taxes from a third of your taxable population because of unemployment. So going to tax those 40 more, you're creating a crisis. One, you're going to see business closures, more unemployment, lower disposable income, lower demand on products and services, which will lead to lower growth. That is very simple. If you really want more tax, what you need to do is to work assiduously in pulling more people out of poverty. Because if you can just pull another 40 million out of poverty, overnight you double your taxes. What you're getting from 40 million, which is what you're trying to do now. So, and if you do that, you're going to have more disposable income in people's hands. You're going to generate more taxes for what you're doing. There's going to be more economic growth and demand for local products, and the economy will grow. And this is very simple, Ruben. You might say, whenever I say simple, people say, genuinely support the engine of growth in this country. And what is that engine of growth? Micro, small, medium enterprises. If you generally support them, not this TV one where you say, oh, we are giving billions to this. No. All these billions you hear they are giving to small businesses in TV. They don't exist. I live in Onitsha. I live in Nnewi, where everybody is small businesses. I've never seen anybody who's told me he applied and received all these things you hear in TV. I've never met one. Maybe there is, I'm I'm not saying there's not, because at times they bring some people who say, I got this, I got this. But I said I live where huge number. Give you an example. After the COVID, the government said, or the institution basically said that they have disbursed 10 billion for transporters to cushion the effect of this thing. I've interviewed from the big transporters to the small one. Nobody have received this money, and I can call their names. I have a list, so long list of interviews. Look at our Anchor Boras program. Ruben is a scam.
No, but the program is doing well.
No.
On the basis of details that have been provided by Godwin Emefiele.
Let me tell you. No. Godwin is doing very well. You know, Godwin is doing very well. He talks to some big people that you can see. I can tell you, if you go down, okay, Anchor is supposed to be focused. Let me use rice. Today, I can tell you, look at the price of rice. I visited the big quotes, farmers and those who are involved with that business. It is not working. This is what we share among political class, not to the real farmers. It's not done well. It might be, yes, it's good. You can bring some people in Abuja who tell you it's doing well, like the SMEs and everybody. It's very easy. You've been involved in this.
But me, I'm in Lagos.
Where is the
I'm not in Abuja, and I'm saying,
let me tell you, I'm part of the design of that thing. If you want it to work, where the Anchor, for example, I visited Unza, the biggest rice farmer in Nigeria today, or tens of this thing, in Nigeria today in Kano. I was there. These are the people you need to use because they have facilities to mill this rice. So if you give it to him and say, we're giving you 10 billion, you look for the farmers who do this, and then feed you because this. That's the way it works. But going to the farmers direct and all this, it won't work. Is I going to give all those 10,000 we give to market women, which have disappeared into nowhere because there's no checks. So, women, you can't tax people more. You're going to worsen it. On subsidy, again, we said subsidy cost us 1.8 trillion annually. Ruben, they say they are going to remove it. Let us first sit down and say, what are the components that brought about this subsidy? And this amount that we're paying, is it genuine? What actually is our consumption of fuel? All these things need to be scrutinized. When we come to it and we know we're paying this amount, so we know what we are removing and what is coming. Because some of the things that are causing issue of high prices and everything, and this subsidy, is even demurrage in the port. These are things we can remove and all that. And then how do you come about that you're going to remove 1.8 trillion and replace it with 5,000 to 40 million Nigerians, which is going to give you 2.4 trillion annually? Where are you going to get it from? Where is even the record? Where is even the data to give this 5,000? Is it a salary? Is it what? Are you just going to give people, or is it unemployment benefit? What are you calling it? How do I know? How does he know that people in state who are going to get this 5,000? So the whole is a confusion. Okay. That's what has been done over the years. Just like we did with cash, conditional cash transfer. Nobody knows what is happening with it today. Okay. Let's do things properly. Okay.
You know, despite the challenging situation in Nigeria, insecurity and all, President Muhammadu Buhari has been globe-trotting, you know, trying to attract investment at this point. And he insists that despite insecurity, it is a good time for, you know, Nigeria, for investors to come into Nigeria. What do you make of that?
Well, maybe I don't know what his advice is, because I'm sure his advice. The president doesn't do anything on his own, his advice. But I think if I was his advisor, I would take the opposite situation. You know, President Buhari has 1 year to leave office. If there's anything he needs to do for Nigerians now, is to actually tour Nigeria, the various parts of Nigeria, be able to bring the country together. Today, our cohesion is at its worst. We are so divided. we hate each other. This is what it should be doing now. We are very insecure. Look at it. You open paper every day. This morning, 38 killed in Kaduna. Let me ask you, my sister, will you go to Afghanistan to invest today? That is a powerful question. You don't need to. Nobody tells you. Nobody. Let me tell you why countries have embassies everywhere in the world. The United States Embassy in Nigeria is the only credible entity an investor in the US will listen to come to Nigeria. Not Peter Obi or anybody going there and preaching. The reason why we set up country-state embassies in a country is to study the situation of that country. So the British High Commission gives the British people, including their businesses, I've been part of it because I lived in the Britain, they give them the feedback whether to come or not. And I can tell you, if you go and read their report, you are now second or third most terrorized country in the world. You are now, in terms of drug prevalence, you are now number 1. So nobody is going to go to a war. The person has to be alive to enjoy the return on his investment. So nobody is going to go with you and everything. Intel is just investing $7 billion in Malaysia. I haven't heard the president of Malaysia going anywhere to talk about that. He's in Malaysia. The investors' money go is like a bee. If you put honey here, the bees will come. How they will penetrate through this door, you won't even know. You need to put things in order. We need to sit down and do our work here and do the proper things. There's things we can do to stimulate the economy. For example, we just sold 5G auction and we have made $550 million. Let that money be properly invested today in creating maybe a tech, innovation, or, supporting STEM courses that will help to grow the country in the future. We have a pool of young, energetic, talented young men. Today, India, all Asian countries, outsourcing is becoming expensive. So they are looking for where to go. Let's put that money into what can help us. If we do it properly, we could be creating Facebook and companies like that in the future. Today, our entire stock market is valued at $45 billion. Facebook valuation is $900 billion. So we're not even 5% of Facebook alone. And we have so many people who can create such companies there. But by the time you know it now, they use the money to pay judgment debt. What type of thing is this? Is what I'm saying. Let us do the proper things other people are doing. Okay. It's very easy.
Okay, let's talk about debt. With this budget of 16 trillion proposed budget, we're going to take another 6 trillion deficit on top of what we have before. The debt stock has grown to about 38 trillion now, and we are still going to add more to it. Increasingly, the argument is we don't have a debt problem, we have a revenue problem. But debt to service ratio at some point was over 90% in this country. Is it that we need to rethink debt? What is happening with debt?
The reason why we have a problem with debt, I've said over debts. I started talking about debt since 2017. If you look at my lecture in platform in May 1, there's nothing wrong with borrowing. I'm a businessman. I've lived all my life by borrowing. You can't go wrong because you don't print, money is not planted in trees. Even this business you are is done by borrowing. But if you borrow for investment, it is good. If you borrow for consumption, it is bad. The reason why debt in Nigeria is having a problem is that we're borrowing for consumption. So you're throwing in debt away and everything. And I give you an example. If you go and survey, forget the Western world, if you survey all the countries in Africa, the major 10 economies, over the past 7 years, Nigeria has borrowed the most, over 300% of our initial debt. We're about $18, $20 billion before. We're hitting 100 now. And this is the one that is, quote, official. If you put other ones that CBN is supporting, it would actually be hitting about 60-something. 50-something to 60 trillion. But these debts have not been properly invested. That is the problem. Our debt to GDP ratio today is 33%. Egypt debt to GDP is about 80. But go and read the various reports of the development agencies, including World Bank. They say that Egypt debt is sustainable because it's been wisely invested. Because look at it, they borrowed money to deal with Siemens to generate power. So everybody know, every Egyptian know where the money went. They borrowed money to put into critical areas. The consequence is that in 2014, Nigeria was #2 investment destination globally.
Now it's not in first 10.
We're not in first 10 now. Egypt, that used to be 6 or 7, is now #1. We used to get more money from diaspora remittances than Egypt. Today, we are down to about 22 billion. Egypt is hitting 30. What are they doing? And again, you don't see the president of Egypt running all over the place. This is what I'm saying. You stay in your country and look at these things that, just like when Ruben talked about taxes. Go and look at the countries that where we're talking about tax. Even them don't have. If you go to Indonesia, I'm looking at countries with huge population. For example, with 260 million, their tax to GDP is still 11-point-something%, but unemployment is below 10. They have to borrowed money. Bangladesh, a country cannot compare with Nigeria in 2010. I was there for 1 week. I was just rushing to go home. I said, go there now. You will see what the unemployment is below 10%. Egypt that I mentioned, now unemployment is below 10%. These are the critical things. They borrowed money like us. Even Ghana. Ghana's borrowing in the past few years have been over 200-something%. But look at the growth in Ghana. Their growth has been over about 6% on the average, which means they are throwing that money into the right places. Your borrowing and your growth have not been able to even match your population growth. So that money that you borrowed, where is it? What did you use? And you're borrowing more. I've given you an example. This first 6 months of this year, we use about 90% of our revenue. In fact, more than 90% to service debt, and you're borrowing more. And nobody is convinced that this money we're borrowing, this is what it is. They say it's for various projects. Don't borrow for various projects. Borrow for one specific, if it's power, that we have not been able to move beyond 4,000 in the past 10 years, let's borrow money and throw to it.
They say railway lines, infrastructure.
Let me tell you, I argued about infrastructure before and said you can't pull an economy of people out of poverty by infrastructure alone. You can actually be doing infrastructure that is not contributing as much as... If you want, there's the development indices that creates a future. Invest in education. Invest in health. Invest in pulling people out of poverty. Before you talk about physical infrastructure, you have to deal with the human infrastructure, the people. Chile is about one of the countries with what you can say assets that is so valuable. Do you know what Chile has? Just human capital. And with that, they have a per capita of over $14,000, which is 7 times our own. Chile, human capital. Invest in that first. Don't go and start saying you're doing this, you're doing this.
Okay. So, yes, we've had quite a conversation from the Electoral Act Amendment Bill to Anambra to issues of development in the economy and all of that. But before we wrap this up, I'd like to ask you, with all of this, you just talked about human capital. It looks like Nigerians are not respected or valued in some parts of the world. Recently, I think yesterday, we were talking about how Nigerians are being maltreated in Ghana, how some Nigerians were maltreated in Togo, and you know, some of our colleagues here were saying, look, these South Africans are so disrespectful. That was how they embarrassed us in South Africa the other day. Why is that the case? How can we put an end to that so that the Nigerian brand can be better respected?
Well, Ruben, I'm very, how do I say it, very sad as every Nigerian, especially when I saw what happened in Togo and other things that happened. But as sad as I am, and so many Nigerians that are or feel, I have to start this by asking you questions. Are Nigerians in Nigeria treated better or fairly? Let's start from home.
OG is well treated.
No. Just saying, have you seen Nigeria treat the poor Nigerians fairly? Ruben, I move around. Before you talk about how people treat you, ask yourself, how do you treat yourself? Have Nigerians shown each other love? Have we shown everything? Look at the way we treat the poor people here. Have you seen any government policy that is meant to alleviate the situation of the poor people? No. Have you seen any of government organizations treating poor people fairly? No. Let's even go further. Look at now, all our young people with all their energy, with all their talent, whom government have denied every means of livelihood. They've refused them to even be entrepreneurial. If you have a laptop in this country now and you're a young man, you could go to jail. They can just call you any name just because you have a laptop. I've seen on a security roadblock where young men were brought down because I stopped. They said, what is the offense? They have laptops. So laptop that everybody is giving their people free to do something is an offense in Nigeria. Even when they try to protest peacefully, look at the way they were treated. So you can go on and on. If I use my own person as a case in point, Ruben, I lived in the UK. If I compare how I was treated living in the UK and how I treated here, it's like heaven and hell. In the UK, I had a business. The government supported it. The bank gave me good advice. Everybody was there. Since I came back here, if you make money, you are like somebody else stolen money. If I had been criminalized, I'm not a criminal. For even making money in your own country.
Everybody, you've been governor. You've been vice presidential candidate. You've been a member of the Presidential Economic Management Committee.
Thank you, Ruben.
Nigeria has been nice to you.
Even with all that, I'm still regarded and still looked at as a criminal. Nobody has called me here, for example, and said, Mr. Obi, how were you able to pay all outstanding bills, do this, and even keep money? What is the process? What is this? So you have, it's the way you treat your people first. Look at where Nigerians are flying Ethiopian Airlines. How can you say a thing like that? You know, because you've not had your own. If we had Nigerian Airways doing New York or Atlanta, Ruben, I grew up when I keep saying it, park my car in underground in Murtala Mohammed Airport, enter Nigerian Airways to New York, to Delhi, and then come back from New York. I didn't know about all this branch through Togo, branch through Gabon, branch everything, because you don't have your own.
All right.
The Malaysian Airlines stopped British Airways from coming to London because they have the price, have planes and everything. If we organize all these insults you see globally, and people telling us, come, don't come, is because they know we're weak. We don't have economy. If we have economy, if we have a country that is run with respect and everything, people will give us more respect. If you tell people your family is useless, when I saw that, I gave somebody an example. I went to Abia on Saturday, and I came back, and I asked my driver to come and pick me. You know, what happened? My daughter went somewhere, and the driver went to pick my daughter. And I was at the airport, and I said, I just arrived. So what you said, kid, don't come. Let me take a taxi. As I was trying to say, sir, we are coming. When he came, I said, but let me ask you a question. Austin, why will you, they said, listen, Oga, you told us that if there's one car remaining between you, madam, and the family, they should take priority. And that's what I did. So when your daughter said, I should come and carry her, and you said I should come and carry her, I did that. The way you treat your own people is the way outsiders will treat them.
All right. On that note, Mr. Obi, we want to thank you very much for joining us on the morning show. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but I was going to ask you a question. Are you going to run in the upcoming election? I think that's what everyone wants to know at this point, really quickly.
Well, you know, we have just had a new party and a new management and everything. Everybody wants them to sit down and take up their decision and say, this is how we want to build a better Nigeria. But I think everybody needs to be involved now. We must get this country to work. There's so much this country can do for everybody. The way it's going now...
You didn't give me an answer.
So the answer is, let's wait for the party to see which direction they want to go, and then you will see my answer.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for watching Precious.ig channel. Subscribe, like, and share.